when I went to New York to actually film Ancestral Voices, because that was my sole purpose. Go there, film Baba Small, get some cutaways, come back to England. And Baba Small did many things, but I'm not, we'll be here all day. I'm going to focus on how this particular film came about, because after our interview, which lasted some 3-4 hours, but what Smalls at the end was like, you've hurt my bum. I can't even stand up, because I had him sitting for that long. He said, first of all, there's a sister you need to meet. Her name is Mambo Dowoti. And I was thinking to myself, I didn't even come with enough tapes, Who's Mambo Dowoti? I haven't heard of her. So you could say I'm a bit starstruck, yeah? But I listened to the words of the elder, because he told and showed me many things. He took me to for instance, the transitioning rights of the elder Nana Kimati Zulu, and it was a blessing to just see how our African American family was getting on. So I said, okay, I will go and meet Queen Mother Dowoti. Yes. Then he said the next person obviously is Mama Bayyinah, and I'm thinking, but she's in Haiti. We don't even have any funds to barely make this film. How am I meeting these people? But it's how I'm trained. I said, okay, I'll try my best. And I tell you what, the very film title, Vodou, Theology of Liberation, comes from Queen Mother Dowoti, because in that moment of me interviewing her, she dropped that phrase on me, and that phrase created a whole wave of ideas that led to the film that we have today. Yes, then we went to Haiti, because when we came back, now I'm charged. So to get to Haiti, we had to do a GoFundMe campaign in order to get to Haiti, family. Okay, and in the film, for those of you who've seen it, all the cutaways that you see, the music that you see, is from footage I archived in 2014. So this film that we managed to release last year was actually made in 2013 when I met Baba Small. And the principle of leadership that I'm calling out is the fact that you know your network so intimately that you know who will be of service to move you forward. When you're in the business environment, they have this thing they call delegation. And often when your manager is delegating, that means they're giving you work they don't want to do. Yeah, so it kind of has this, but this was what I call effective, because he listened to my ideas and he said, these are the two people that can help you. And I could have just said, nah, I never had them in mind. I really don't want to see them. But I did. And the film was birthed in 2013, and I wasn't even aware. So my first principle really is knowing, Baba Smalls even expressed it when he came on the call and the way he introduced the mothers. Knowing your family so intimately that we know who has the potential to do perhaps more than us, so that we're not always the poster person, if you will. So Baba Smalls, I give thanks. For me, that's the principle I would like to share today. And for now, the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mama Bayyinah, would you like to start, or would we let Baba Smalls go?
Oh, my big brother can talk. I let him go.
Okay.
She disappeared. Oh, there you are.
Well, it's an honor. I remember when I first met Dowoti. I was like, she was working for the Malcolm X Foundation. You were actually the one that opened the Malcolm X Betty Shabazz Center. And I began to watch her. At first, I wasn't sure, where's this young lady coming from? But I watched her through the years and watched her grow and watch her just expand. And then she got into the UN and she just expanded. And she stayed on the theme of her culture. She never dropped it. She stayed on the theme as she grew as a practitioner in Vodou. She never dropped the ball. Sister Bayyinah, I don't know when we met. I think I heard you at First World for the first time, and I fell in love. I went home and asked my wife, could I have a second wife? She said, no, but you could be her brother. And so just watching someone who wasn't afraid to say the word Vodou, who wasn't afraid to say, I love it, I am it, here's what it looks like, world. When everybody was afraid, even the toughest we had was afraid to mention Haiti. They were afraid. I was among them. I could tell you. I know fear. And then came Sister Bello, and she wasn't afraid. And she spoke and opened up a whole new space about where we should go with an understanding of African sacred science through understanding Vodou. So for me, I'm actually here to listen to them. And I haven't listened to Sister Dowoti. I think we did something for our sister at the Caribbean Cultural Center. And I came late, so I missed a lot of it. But I know you have an extraordinary perspective. Just watching you from a few years ago, how you were just so focused too, for a young lady in New York. And I go, like, she's serious. You know, some people out there, you know, no disrespect to people, but there's some people out there playing with the culture. Some are out there making money off of the culture. Some are out there using it just as an identity piece. And yes, all of us are climbing up the hill. We're trying to learn. We're on a path. We're trying to grow. As I was telling the brother earlier, many times we even get knocked off the path. You know, that's why I don't like the term master teacher. I'm not a master of nothing except attempting to be a better human being each day. So that I try to master. But we're all trying to grow and return to understand our ancestors. So the greatest message I have to give to our people, you must learn our history. You must study and learn our history. And your sources of study must be as close to our elders and ancestors as possible. There are others who have written well on our history, some with great sincerity. But the greatest sincerity comes from those whom we came out of. Because I believe that we are perpetual. Well, I don't believe, I know it's an absolute fact. That in the beginning, with the first spark of a human being, or three of us, or four of us were here. And we are that constant repetition of ourselves. You know, that the act of creation, there's no God in the sky, in the ground, in the air. We carry out that act of creation as a part of the divine essence expression in that function, as we do with everything else. Everything the divine does on earth, we do it, or the birds do it, or the fish do it, or the animal do it. But that's how the divine does what it does. And it exists only because all of us exist. And we exist as it. And so I think when we really get that through understanding history and culture and understanding the acts of our ancestors, to understand the revolution in Haiti, to understand a people that had no arms initially to talk about, except what they can make out of a stick called a spear, or whatever cutlass they had on the farm or hoe. Others had rifles, cannons, and all kinds of military equipment. But we had something they didn't have. We knew we were the divine having this human experience. And we exercised that knowledge. We knew that there was the left and a right, but we also knew there was a center that managed the left and the right. And we exercised that knowledge. And we won. And as much as they would look now at Haiti and say, oh, woe unto Haiti. Oh, poor Haiti. We won. Guess what? We are still the victors. We are still victorious. I think the only thing we failed at is how to negotiate our victory. And that should be where we are, to negotiate. They haven't defeated us. Here we are. How could we be defeated when we're sitting right here, right now, saying what we're saying, doing what we're doing, and so many others doing the same thing at home? We were victorious then. Our victory has been continuous. Now, how do we consolidate our victory? By making sure knowledge, balanced knowledge, is with as much of our people as possible. So history will erase the enemy's mystery and let us work our voodoo magic one more time. You know, that's it. Black magic.
AYIBOBO.
AYIBOBO, that's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful one. Professor Smalls, Baba Smalls, give thanks so much. That is a cannon shot forget a gunshot. I would like to just call out Erica McBarrows, because she's done something so wonderful. As she says, the film is so powerful and wonderful. Fam, please purchase to watch. Erica, I want to thank you sincerely, because as much as you have the film, you've actually just given us a donation worth even more than the value of the film. So give thanks for your appreciation. We appreciate that. Yeah, sincere thanks. Hey, it says it all. Joy Mara Coleman, I'm grateful for this information, deep appreciation for the wisdom of the ancestors. Obviously, for the mothers, we have shout out to the Divine Feminine. This is us prepping for the mothers to also get on board. Yeah, always sharing empowering content. And there is one that is here. Mama Bayyinah, Mama Bello, as it says, you make it so plain, even a fool can learn. We love her. I tell you that, man. Yes, indeed. Give and take, balance, polarity. Absolutely. Mama Bayyinah, for your song, we must remember, indeed, Ashe. Yes, indeed. She makes it so plain and clear. Faye Abdullah is your favorite person, Mama Bayyinah. So, again, give thanks to Mekshat for your donation. We appreciate you too. Mama Bayyinah, this is me setting you up. So whenever you're ready, you can let me know, please. If
I was born ready.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I'm off now, family. I'm in the background.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, the first thing I would like to confirm or affirm what my brother just said about leadership and what we knew that brought us to victory. And it's not my creation. Bookman Duty, who came as a teenager from Jamaica in the practice of Islam and then became a powerful Unga in Vodou in the colony of Saint-Domingue, he told us on August 14, 1791, the one who created everything you see here, the sky, the ocean and everything, he is your father. And his strength is in you. He orders you to free yourself and know that the light of freedom is in each one of your hearts. So the power to do it is in us. Once we are one with ourselves, we cannot be defeated. And that's why our enemies insist we must go to their church, we must go to their school, so they can put elements that separate us and us. Whereas in Vodou, everything comes from you. Where am I gonna see Ogu? We don't know. We're gonna sing. All of us are singing Ogu. And then the next thing we know, the person we know, Mama Queen Mother Dowoti, she has a totally different expression. Her voice changes, and she's dealing from a different. And she's telling us things that maybe no one could even know about us. So the force just rises into her. And the next minute, she may be, indisposed of sorts, physically, her body. And then we see the same force in Baba Small. So spirit has no prejudice. It's not going to say, well, I'm a Ogu force. I'm not going to go into woman. Because all of it is inside each one of us. Once we align ourselves with ourselves, we are invincible. So that's the thing to remember. But every time we're reciting other people's stuff, we are dividing ourselves into little bits and pieces.
Great. Thank you.
Mama Bayyinah.
I love how Mama Bahia has emphasized something that I think we should be mindful of and never forget effectively, which is the idea of how energy moves among us. We use the example of herself singing a song, but then all of a sudden the song awakens something in me, and my character, my person changes, and that same energy, the example of Ogun, will enter into Baba Small and manifest itself in another way. This issue of space and spatial justice, using the idea of Ogun and justice, that's what had me so like ramped up and so animated when we were in the park talking about the other film initially. But I couldn't get my head around the sort of I guess more spiritual aspects of Vodou. I was concerned about its other lessons and its manifestations in the political and the geopolitical realm. So the idea of spatial justice, and that is how we move through the world. What spaces do we claim? Of physical spaces, our lands, the space in our tongues, our languages, the spaces of our hearts and our minds, and the heavens in relationship to the divine, what we eat, how we dress. These are all manifestations of social space. And the critical thing for myself, one of the most important lessons for myself in terms of the Haitian Revolution, is this idea of spatial justice, is about reclaiming those things that are ours, and rethinking what the notion of empire means. We're talking about leadership. For me, in my capacity as Queen Mother, I have to think literally, what does that mean? It's not an abstract concept for me. In my capacity, I'm in the process of setting up a government. I'm considered a sovereign. I have to found and establish a palace for the African diaspora. So I have to think about these things in very concrete terms. And so I'm looking at the Haitian Constitution, and I'm thinking about what that means. I'm thinking about what does empire mean, because our first governor, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, he wasn't a president or didn't have the title of a prime minister. His title was emperor, right? And our usual way of thinking about empire, and I know Mama Bayyinah, because she's the expert on our history about this, is empires always meant the sort of physical domination, taking over of other people's geographic spaces. We were given examples of Alexander the Great, who took over the world. But the world was this big back then. Right? The known world was that big.
Mm-hmm.
But the revolution and the nature, unfortunately, of the transatlantic slave trading captive Africans made us understand the totality and the globality of the world. And it was so much more than, these little sections of Europe and the so-called Mid-East, which was actually Africa. And so again, empire in the Western sense was about physically taking over people's spaces, annexing that, taking over their languages, their ways of thinking, the ways of being. But ours was a much more expanded one. The notion of empire with Dessalines was more about sort of geospatial spaces that we occupied. It was about creating alliances. It was about providing aid that was not military, but material in other ways. Whether it was sending sugar or coffee that people would sell and buy arms to liberate themselves in Bolivia. It's the idea of debt not being based on money and economics, but debt based on principle and ethics and barter. So that if I give you something, I expect you to liberate my fellow Africans. I expect you to abide by a set of constructs that are going to free all of us. And so again, the spaces that we move in, that the revolution encouraged us to abide by, to breathe in, to give and to take, were just very different from the constructs that the West had provided us as political models. We literally, physically, spiritually, morally shifted the paradigm, and created new spaces of existence and power, new spaces of agency for ourselves, that were manifest not just spiritually, but diplomatically, philosophically, and and legally, because we had a constitution that underscored those ideas. That's what I have to say for now. And I'm the one who doesn't make things easy. Sorry. There's always one of us in the bunch.
Well, I guess tonight I have the role of affirming. Yes, as our sister spoke, we created on October 8, 1804, the Empire, Haiti Empire of Freedom, not any old kind of empire. Okay. When we look at Jean-Jacques Dessalines' letterhead, it clearly says, it clearly states, Jacques, Emperor First of Haiti, comma, Empire of Freedom. So what we're creating has nothing to do with their behavior, their practice of the term empire. And Dessalines is somebody who's very big on that in defining terms for us. For example, when he said that every Haitian, and it's in the Constitution, every Haitian will be referred to as with the generic term of black.
Meg.
Whether your skin is white, your eyes are blue, we don't care where you were born. If you are Haitian, you are a black person. Ooh, what does this man want? What is he talking about? Well, when people say, well, what is black? What is black? Are those who fight for freedom. So it's not about your skin. It's about your behavior.
It's a frequency. It's a frequency, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Blackness is a frequency.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So when we will have in Haiti real lawyers who will study the Constitution of 1805 and be able to understand what has been hidden in it for us, then we will have a constitution that could serve the people. It's also the only constitution I have read that defines who is Haitian. To be a Haitian citizen, you must be first a good husband, a good father, a good son, and above all, a great soldier.